My twin brother showed up covered in bruises. When I realized her wife was mistreating her, we swapped places and I taught him a lesson he'll never forget. I watched my twin brother park his Honda Civic in my driveway at 11:34 p.m. and knew something was catastrophically wrong. Adrian never showed up without calling first, never wore sunglasses at night, never moved like every step sent shockwaves of pain through his body. I opened the door before he could knock. "Jules," he said. My name came out cracked, broken. I pulled him inside, locked the door, reached for the sunglasses he was wearing despite the darkness. "Don't," he whispered. I pulled them off anyway. His left eye was swollen completely shut, purple and black and grotesque, split lip crusted with dried blood, scratches down the side of his neck like someone had clawed him, a bruise on his temple in the perfect shape of knuckles. "Who?" My voice was calm, prosecutor calm, the calm I used in court when I wanted a jury to understand exactly how serious a crime was. Adrian shook his head. "Please don't call the police. Vanessa said if I ever told anyone, she'd take Leo and disappear. I'd never see him again." Vanessa, his wife of 4 years. The woman I'd never quite trusted but couldn't articulate why. The woman who smiled too perfectly at family dinners while her hand rested possessively on Adrian's arm. "Show me," I said. He hesitated, then slowly rolled up his sleeves. Layers of bruises, old ones fading to yellow-green underneath fresh purple ones. A timeline written in violence. Burns on his forearm, circular, deliberate. I recognized them from a domestic violence case I'd prosecuted last year. Cigarette burns. "How long?" I kept my voice level. "Since the wedding." Adrian's voice was barely audible. "It got worse after Leo was born. She said I was a terrible father, that I was weak, that no one would believe me anyway because I'm a man and she's a woman," I finished. "So people assume she's the victim." "Yeah, what happened tonight?" His hands started shaking. "Leo wouldn't stop crying. He's 3, Jules. He had a nightmare. And Vanessa, she threw a coffee mug at his head, missed by inches. It shattered against the wall right next to his bed. Something cold and precise settled into my chest. Not rage, calculation. I'm Julian Torres, senior prosecutor with the district attorney's office. 15 years putting criminals behind bars. I know exactly how abusers operate, how they isolate, manipulate, control, how they weaponize the system's biases. I just never thought one had married my twin brother. "You're not going back," I said. "I can't leave. She'll fight for custody. Say I abandoned them. Say I'm unstable or violent or..." "Jules, no one believes men get abused. The system doesn't work for us." I looked at my identical twin. Same face, same height, same voice, though his had gone quiet over 4 years while Vanessa taught him that speaking up brought consequences. "Then we don't fight the way she expects," I said. His eyes widened. "What?" "We swap places. She'll hurt you. I'm not fighting her with fists." I cut him off. "I'm fighting her with evidence, documentation, the legal system I know inside and out. And she won't see me coming because she'll think I'm you." 18 hours earlier, I'd been in court prosecuting a robbery case. Normal day, normal life. My twin brother Adrian was supposedly happy with his wife Vanessa and their 3-year-old son Leo. I saw them every other Sunday for family dinners at our parents' house. Vanessa always looked perfect. Blonde hair styled expertly. Designer clothes on a kindergarten teacher's salary. But Adrian worked in tech, made good money, so I'd assumed he bought them for her. She'd smile and touch his hand and talk about how lucky she was. Adrian would smile back, but the smile never quite reached his eyes. I'd noticed that 2 years ago. Mentioned it to our mother. "He's just tired," Mom had said. "New baby, demanding job. Give them time to adjust." So I had. Now, looking at the bruises covering my brother's body, I realized I'd given Vanessa 2 years to perfect her abuse. I made 3 phone calls while Adrian sat on my couch, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. First call, Monica Reeves, domestic violence advocate with the Portland Crisis Center. 23 years specializing in male victims, a population most people pretended didn't exist. "Julian," Monica's voice was warm but professional. "It's late. What's wrong? I need your help. My brother. His wife has been abusing him for 4 years. Tonight she threw something at their 3-year-old son's head." Silence. Then, "Where is he now?" "My house." "Keep him there. I'm coming over. Don't let him go back. Don't let him call her. We do this right, or she'll weaponize every mistake against him in court." Second call, Diane Park, family law attorney, former colleague from the DA's office before she went into private practice. 15 years specializing in custody cases involving domestic violence. "Diane, I need emergency protective order paperwork and emergency custody filings. Tonight." "For who?" "My twin brother. I'm going to need you to trust me on the details, but his wife is the abuser. We have evidence. We need to move fast before she realizes he's not coming home." Diane didn't hesitate. "I'll start the paperwork. Meet me at my office tomorrow at 8 a.m. Bring everything." Third call, Detective Rachel Kim, domestic violence unit, Portland Police. We'd worked dozens of cases together over the years. "Jules, isn't it past midnight? I need advice off the record. My brother's been abused by his wife for 4 years. Tonight she endangered their 3-year-old. He's terrified to report because he thinks no one will believe him. Rachel's voice hardened. They will if you have evidence. What are we looking at? Visible injuries, pattern of abuse, witnesses, maybe. The kid's daycare might have noticed things. Document everything. Photos with timestamps, medical examination if he'll agree. Then we build a case that's airtight before she knows we're coming. Monica arrived at 12:47 a.m. She took one look at Adrian, and her expression shifted into something I recognized from court. Controlled fury at injustice. I'm Monica Reeves, she said, sitting across from him. I work with survivors of domestic violence. Julian called me because what's happening to you is a crime, and you deserve help. I'm not a survivor. Adrian's voice was hollow. I'm just a guy who can't protect himself from his own wife. You're a victim of systematic abuse by someone who swore to love you, Monica corrected gently. Gender doesn't make you less deserving of safety. Now I need you to tell me everything. Timeline, injuries, threats, patterns of control. It took Adrian 2 hours to tell the story. How Vanessa had been charming during their courtship. Sweet, attentive. How the first incident happened on their honeymoon. She'd slapped him for staring at the waitress when he'd just been reading the menu. How he'd excused it as wedding stress. How it escalated after they got home. Yelling became shoving. Shoving became hitting. Hitting became cigarette burns when he didn't listen properly. How she controlled all their money despite his 6-figure salary. How she monitored his phone, his emails, his location. How she told him daily that he was worthless, stupid, lucky she'd settled for him. How she'd turned her family against him. Her mother Carol lived with them now, constantly criticizing everything Adrian did. Her sister Brittany came over weekly to mock him for not knowing how to handle a strong woman. How Leo's birth had made everything worse. Vanessa demanded perfection in parenting, but forbade Adrian from making any decisions. If Leo cried, it was Adrian's fault for not soothing him correctly. If Leo was happy, it was because of Vanessa's superior parenting. And tonight? Monica asked. Tonight Leo woke up from a nightmare, called for me. I went to comfort him, and Vanessa followed, screaming that I was coddling him. Leo kept crying, and Adrian's voice broke. She grabbed a coffee mug off his dresser and threw it at his head. It missed and shattered on the wall. Leo was screaming. She told me to clean it up and get out, so I grabbed my keys and just drove. Monica made notes in a leather portfolio. Do you have photos of previous injuries? No. She made me delete anything I tried to document. Do you have access to medical records? Past doctor visits? She comes to every appointment, tells them I'm clumsy. They believe her. What about witnesses? Friends? Family? Adrian laughed bitterly. She isolated me from everyone, said my friends were bad influences, convinced my parents I was just stressed from work whenever I seemed off. The only person who still talks to me is Jules. Monica looked at me. You've noticed things? Not enough. Not soon enough. The guilt tasted like ash. I saw changes. Thought it was normal marital stuff. I should have known. Abusers are excellent at hiding, Monica said firmly, especially when the victim is male. Society doesn't want to believe women can be violent. Vanessa has weaponized that bias perfectly. She turned back to Adrian. Here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, you're getting a full medical examination. Photos of every injury. Documentation of every burn, every bruise, every pattern that proves systematic abuse. We're going to statement from you, from Julian, from anyone who might have seen something, and we're going to file for emergency protective order and emergency custody before Vanessa realizes you're not coming home. She'll fight back, Adrian whispered. She'll say I'm lying, that I hurt her, that I'm dangerous to Leo. Let her try, I said, because here's what she doesn't know. She's not fighting you anymore. She's fighting me, and I've spent 15 years in court destroying people who think they're smarter than the evidence. I moved fast, booked Adrian a hotel room under my name, paid cash, made sure the address was nowhere near his house, his work, anywhere Vanessa might think to look. Then I went home and prepared to become my brother. We're identical twins, same height, same build, same voice. The only real difference is personality. I'm louder, more aggressive, more confrontational. Adrian had always been the gentle one, until Vanessa spent 4 years teaching him that gentleness meant weakness. At 6:47 a.m., I put on Adrian's clothes, jeans and a button-down shirt that hung loose because he'd lost weight, pulled on his watch, practiced his quieter voice, his careful movements, the way he'd learned to make himself small. It made me sick, because my brother used to fill rooms with laughter. Now he whispered and flinched. I drove Adrian's Honda to his house in the suburbs. 3-bedroom craftsman, perfect lawn, the kind of place that looked like happiness from the outside. I unlocked the door at 7:12 a.m. Vanessa was in the kitchen, drinking coffee and scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered. Blonde hair perfect even this early. Yoga pants and an expensive athleisure top. Where the hell were you last night? Her voice was sharp, accusatory. I needed space. I kept Adrian's quiet tone, submitted posture. You don't get space. You don't get to just leave when when things get hard. Leo was asking for you all night and I had to deal with it alone. She hadn't asked if I was okay, hadn't acknowledged throwing a mug at our child's head, just blamed me for not being there to absorb her rage. Classic abuser behavior. I'm sorry, I said, the words tasting like poison. You should be. Now make breakfast. Mom's coming over and she'll be furious if there's nothing ready. Carol, Vanessa's mother. According to Adrian, she lived in their guest room and spent every day criticizing him. I made scrambled eggs and toast while Vanessa watched me like a prison guard. You're doing it wrong, she said. The eggs are too dry. They weren't, but I said nothing. And you didn't set the table properly. Are you stupid? I set the table. Carol arrived at 8:04 a.m. 60s. Bleached blonde hair. Expression of permanent disapproval. Adrian, she looked me up and down. You look terrible. What's wrong with you? Rough night, I said. Man up. My daughter works hard to keep this house running and all you do is complain. I'd said 8 words. Total. Vanessa smiled at her mother. He walked out last night. Just left when Leo needed him. Typical. Men are so selfish. I watched them. Listened. Took mental notes on every word, every gesture, every casual cruelty they treated as normal. This was Adrian's daily life. This was what he'd been surviving for 4 years. At 9:23 a.m., I went to check on Leo. He was in his room, playing with blocks. 3 years old. Dark hair like Adrian's. When he saw me, he smiled. Daddy! My heart cracked. Hey buddy, how are you feeling? Scared. Mommy yelled. I knelt down to his level. I know, but it's going to be okay. She threw the cup. It broke. I know. That was scary, huh? He nodded. Are you mad at me? Jesus Christ. No, Leo. I'm not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong. Mommy says I cry too much. You're 3 years old. You're allowed to cry. He hugged me. Small arms wrapped around my neck, trusting. I made a silent promise. I would get him out of this house. Over the next 3 days, I lived as Adrian. Vanessa's pattern was predictable. She'd start pleasant in the morning, then escalate throughout the day. By evening, she'd be screaming about imagined slights. I'd looked at her wrong, breathed too loud, existed incorrectly. She threw things, keys, TV remote, a plate that shattered inches from my head. She shoved me, hard enough to leave bruises, hard enough that I had to brace against walls. She burned dinner on purpose, then screamed at me for not cooking instead. Carol and Brittany, Vanessa's sister, were constant presences. They'd sit in the living room drinking wine and talking about how useless I was, how Vanessa deserved better, how lucky I was that she'd married me despite my obvious inadequacy. I recorded everything. Voice memos on Adrian's phone, hidden in my pocket. Vanessa's verbal abuse, Carol's casual cruelty, Brittany's mocking. I photographed new bruises with timestamps, documented every thrown object, saved the broken plate as evidence. I checked the Ring doorbell footage. Adrian had mentioned it. Found clips of Vanessa shoving him outside last month, of her screaming at him on the porch, of him cowering. I contacted Leo's daycare using Adrian's email, asked for any incident reports or teacher observations. The response came within hours from the director, Patricia Moreno, 20 years in early childhood education. Mr. Torres, thank you for reaching out. We've been concerned about Leo for several months. He's exhibited anxiety behaviors, excessive crying at drop-off, reluctance to discuss home life, flinching when teachers raise their voices. We've documented 12 incidents where he came to school with unexplained bruises or mentioned mommy being mad. We were preparing to file a report with Child Services, but wanted to speak with you first. My hands shook reading that email. Vanessa had been hurting Leo too, or at minimum traumatizing him by hurting Adrian in front of him. I forwarded everything to Diane Park, to Monica Reeves, to Detective Kim, built a case, piece by piece, email by email, photo by photo. While I coordinated logistics, Monica worked with Adrian on his formal statement. Detective Kim arranged for a forensic medical examination. Dr. Stephen Walsh, specialist in domestic violence injuries, 26 years experience. He documented every bruise, every burn, every scar with clinical precision. Diane prepared the legal filings, emergency protective order, emergency custody petition, temporary restraining order. Everything was ready. On day 4, at 11:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa on Adrian's phone. Where are you? You said you'd be home by noon. I was at Diane's office. Final prep for the court hearing that afternoon. I texted back in Adrian's submissive style. Running errands. Be home soon. You better be. Mom's making lunch and she's pissed you're not here. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Diane. She's getting suspicious. Doesn't matter. We file in 2 hours. She won't have time to counter. At 2:17 p.m., I walked into the Multnomah County Courthouse. Adrian sat in the waiting area outside Family Court Division 7, Monica beside him. He looked terrified, hands shaking, face pale, but he was here, standing up, fighting back. Diane approached with a folder. Everything's filed. Judge Morrison is hearing it. She's tough but fair. Seen plenty of domestic violence cases. Won't tolerate bullshit from either side. What are our chances? I asked. With this evidence? Excellent. Photos, medical reports, daycare documentation, ring footage, witness statements. It's airtight. Unless Vanessa has equally compelling counter-evidence, Adrian's getting that protective order and temporary custody. She'll claim he's lying, that he's the abuser. Let her. She has no proof. We have mountains. At 3:04 p.m., we entered the courtroom. Judge Patricia Morrison sat at the bench, late 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, reading glasses perched on her nose, 28 years on the family court bench. Vanessa arrived 7 minutes later with her attorney, Richard Stokes, known for defending questionable clients with aggressive tactics. She'd dressed carefully, soft blue cardigan, minimal makeup, hair down, the picture of a confused, frightened wife. But her eyes were calculating, cold. She scanned the courtroom and found Adrian. Her expression flickered, surprise, then rage, then back to confused victim. She didn't know yet, didn't realize the man she'd been living with for 3 days wasn't her husband. Judge Morrison called the hearing to order at 3:12 p.m. We're here on an emergency petition for protective order and temporary custody filed by Adrian Torres against his wife, Vanessa Torres. Counsel, present your case. Diane stood. Your Honor, Mr. Torres has been the victim of systematic domestic violence for approximately 4 years. We have extensive documentation, medical reports, photographic evidence, eyewitness testimony, and recorded verbal abuse. Additionally, the couple's 3-year-old son has been endangered by Mrs. Torres's violent behavior. She presented the evidence methodically. Dr. Walsh's medical report detailing injuries consistent with repeated assault, photos showing bruises in various stages of healing, ring camera footage showing Vanessa shoving Adrian, voice recordings of her verbal abuse, daycare reports documenting Leo's anxiety and unexplained bruises. Judge Morrison reviewed each piece in silence. Vanessa's attorney stood. Your Honor, these allegations are absurd. Mrs. Torres is a kindergarten teacher with no history of violence. Mr. Torres is clearly fabricating these claims to gain advantage in what is actually a custody dispute he initiated. Does your client have evidence of Mr. Torres's alleged violence? The judge asked. We have Mrs. Torres's testimony. Testimony isn't evidence, Mr. Stokes. Do you have medical reports? Police reports? Witnesses? Not at this time, but then sit down. Stokes sat. Judge Morrison looked at Adrian. Mr. Torres approached the bench. Adrian stood, walked forward on shaking legs. Is this your statement? The judge held up the sworn affidavit. Everything contained in it is true to the best of your knowledge? Yes, Your Honor. Adrian's voice was steady, stronger than it had been in years. And you're seeking protection for yourself and your son from your wife? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Morrison's expression was unreadable. She looked at Vanessa. Mrs. Torres, do you wish to make a statement? Vanessa stood, dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Your Honor, I don't know what's happening. My husband has been acting strangely for weeks. Distant, aggressive. I think he's having some kind of breakdown. Do you have evidence of this breakdown? Medical records? Psychiatric evaluation? Well, no, but have you ever struck your husband? Vanessa hesitated. Fatal pause. No, never. I would never. Mrs. Torres, we have ring camera footage showing you pushing him, voice recordings of you threatening him, medical evidence of repeated injuries. Are you claiming all of this is fabricated? Vanessa's mask started cracking. He's lying. Men don't get abused by women. This is ridiculous. Mrs. Torres, the judge's voice cut like a blade. Gender doesn't determine victimhood. Evidence does. And the evidence presented today is substantial and credible. But I'm his wife. I love him. You're also documented on camera engaging in physical assault. You're recorded verbally abusing him. Your son's daycare has filed reports about his concerning behavior. Unless you have evidence to contradict any of this, I'm inclined to grant Mr. Torres's petition. Vanessa's face transformed. The soft, confused victim disappeared. Her expression turned vicious. This is bullshit. You're going to believe some man who can't handle a strong woman? Who's too weak to... Mrs. Torres, control yourself, or I'll hold you in contempt. But Vanessa was unraveling. 4 years of perfect performance, of playing victim while being predator, and it was all collapsing in real time. He's lying. He's manipulating you. I'm the victim here. The evidence says otherwise. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. Based on the documentation presented, I'm granting the emergency protective order. Mrs. Torres, you are prohibited from any contact with your husband or your son. Direct, indirect, through third parties. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. You can't. I can, and I am. Furthermore, temporary custody of the minor child is awarded to Mr. Torres pending a full hearing. You'll have supervised visitation rights once we can arrange appropriate oversight. Vanessa lunged out of her seat. Her lawyer grabbed her arm, but she yanked free. This is insane. He's a man. Men don't need protection from women. He's lying, and you're all falling for it because he's... Mrs. Torres, sit down and be quiet, or I will have the bailiff remove you. Vanessa rounded on Adrian. Her face was twisted with rage. The real face she'd hidden for 4 years. You bastard. You think you won? You think anyone will believe you're the victim? You're pathetic. That's enough. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Bailiff Bailiff, escort Mrs. Torres from the courtroom. This hearing is adjourned. The bailiff moved toward Vanessa. She shook off his hand. Don't touch me. This is discrimination. You're all... They took her by the arms, guided her toward the exit while she screamed about injustice and lies and how her husband was manipulating everyone. The courtroom doors closed, muffled her voice, then silence. Adrian stood frozen, tears streaming down his face, not from sadness, from relief. Judge Morrison looked at him with something almost gentle. Mr. Torres, you did the right thing. Getting yourself and your son to safety is the bravest thing a parent can do. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. Thank whoever helped you build this case. It saved your life. Adrian turned to look at me. I'd been sitting in the gallery watching. Now I stood and walked forward. Vanessa's attorney did a double take. Wait, who? Julian Torres, I said. Adrian's twin brother, senior prosecutor with the DA's office. Stokes's face went pale. You've been documenting your client's abuse while she thought I was her victim? Yes. That's entrapment. That's evidence collection. Everything I recorded would have happened to my brother. I just made sure it was documented this time. I smiled, cold. Your client spent 4 years teaching my brother to be quiet. She never imagined he'd find someone who knew how to be loud. I turned to Adrian. It's over. You're safe. Leo's safe. He grabbed me, hugged me like he used to when we were kids, and the world was still safe. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's what brothers are for. 6 months later, I sat in my office reviewing case files. Adrian's permanent protective order had been granted. Vanessa had supervised visitation with Leo once every 2 weeks, which she'd attended exactly twice before stopping entirely. Diane had filed for divorce. It was finalized 3 weeks ago. Adrian got full custody, the house, and most of the assets since Vanessa's abuse was documented. Vanessa had been fired from her teaching position once news of the protective order spread. No school district would hire someone with proven domestic violence on their record. Carol and Brittany had both been subpoenaed to testify during the full custody hearing. Their casual cruelty hadn't played well in court. Judge Morrison had been unimpressed by their claims that Adrian needed to toughen up. Detective Kim had reviewed all my evidence for potential criminal charges. The DA's office, my office, had declined to prosecute because Adrian didn't want Vanessa in prison, just out of his life. She'd gotten her wish. Vanessa had moved to Seattle, started over, found new people to manipulate. My phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. Leo asked when Uncle Jules is coming over. Said he wants to show you his Lego tower. I smiled. Tomorrow. Tell him I'm bringing ice cream. You spoil him. That's what uncles are for. Jules, thank you for everything, for seeing what I couldn't, for being brave when I couldn't, for saving us. You saved yourself. I just provided the documentation. You provided hope. That's more important. I set down my phone and looked out at the Portland skyline. Vanessa had spent 4 years teaching my brother that being a man meant he didn't deserve protection, that his pain didn't matter, that no one would believe him. She'd underestimated exactly one thing, that somewhere in this world was someone who wore his face, shared his DNA, and had spent 15 years learning how to destroy people who thought they were untouchable. She'd abused the gentle twin, then discovered the other one doesn't play fair, and that was her last mistake.